On a beautiful day in a beautiful place with a lot of beautiful people around us, we have a somber conversation to have. 1 year ago today, actually, October 9th, we lost a loved one, and I'm here privileged to be sitting with Melissa Baptiste. Melissa, I want to talk about prior to a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about your family. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your life as an adult with children.
Okay. Well, you know how people say kids are their world? That was a real story for me. Single mother, 4 kids. All 4 of them lived with me full time. No vacations, no weekends at dad's, no nothing. I was that much fun, they didn't want to leave me, literally. Their friends come over. It was like a big old family with friends and kids, and it was the funnest thing ever. I never got tired of the messes. Okay, I'm lying. I got a little tired of the messes. But we were just so close. My kids were everything to me, are everything to me. And we loved family time. Loved it.
Well, and it's interesting because you knew my daughter, and my family was kind of intertwined with your family. Talk a little bit about that.
Jacoby went to Grove. Jacoby's my youngest. He's 12 now. And he went to Grove his younger years. I can't remember the grades that he was there, but
Jacoby was a name that I was hearing a lot.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. I say this, he reminds me of Jeffrey a lot, even like features. But he is a very sweet kid, kind to everyone, loves everyone, not a mean bone in his body. And that's where he met your grandson, was at
Max.
Grove. Yes, Max. Mad Max. I think that's what they called him when he was little, Mad Max. And then Cherish, your daughter, and I became friends. And yeah, he was just, those two were buddies, and a little rowdy every now and then, as boys could be, but we loved Mad Max and taking him to the movies or hanging out with him. But yeah, and that's crazy that.
Yeah, that we never know.
No.
We never know. And then there's this J thing going on. What's up with the J thing?
Yeah,
Jacoby.
I literally didn't. So Jeffrey's name was Joel Jeffrey, and so there was.
JJ.
I didn't do that on purpose. Anyway, he was named after his biological father, and then my dad.
Oh.
And then I met Virgil, and had the other 3 kids with him, and he helped raise Jeffrey. But his family did the J thing, and I thought, how ironic that we fit right into that, you know?
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. So we just continued it, and his sister has all J's, his brother has J's. It's just wild. We get a little tongue-tied every now and then. You ever get onto your kids and you have too many of them, you kind of mix their names up?
Yes. Yeah. That's how you know it's official.
Yeah.
This is a family.
Sure. Yeah.
You bump the names.
Yeah.
But so then a couple of weeks ago, I'm sitting with this young man who I was just impressed with after a football game. He's our starting quarterback. He was our starting quarterback as a sophomore. And I just knew that I wanted to talk to him and get to know him a little bit. And of course, I'm talking about Jameer Owens. And so we're sitting there in Hardesty's, and he reminds me that we lost a young man a year ago. And it kind of, it was kind of one of those things that was just back here in my head. I kind of remembered, but I didn't. I had to go home. I had to ask my wife, do you remember? And she's like, yes, you should call Cheris. And I talked to and I'm like, this is so wild that I know this person. And it would not have come up unless we started a conversation. And I just was asking him some questions, because I was interested in the young man. A beautiful young man, leader, and I find out he had lost a 22-year-old brother. And I thought, wow, I want to know a little bit more about this. And I start looking up, because you had commented on the video, and I start looking up a little bit, and I noticed, okay, this family has gone through a lot, and this mom has something to share. And I want to hear what can we go to October 9th of last year?
Ooh.
Can we go there and say, okay, this is what I know, Melissa, and you fill me in. Is it it's a Sunday morning, the kids are home, you're doing mom things, and everybody's safe. You have a 22-year-old son at home, you have a 17, 16, 17-year-old son, and your daughter
Yes.
is, help me, Journey?
Journey. Yes.
Journey.
Uh-huh.
Where does she's older, right? She's in between Jeffrey and Jameer.
Oh gosh, this is the craziest story. Journey and Jameer are 9 months apart, but only because Jameer was 6 weeks early. So there's that. He's a preemie.
We've got a close one. We've got a couple of close ones too.
It happens.
And so all of them were home.
Yes.
Is that correct? So let's walk through. I know it might be hard, but let's walk through October 9th of last year.
It was. I was coming from a tough breakup. My fiance had broke up. He had moved, and that was, I thought, oh dear Lord, I'm going through it. It's rough,
Mm-hmm.
Some friends invited me down to OU, Texas. I was reluctant to go. I don't like leaving my kids. Before I didn't like leaving them. Now I really can't leave them. But I was down in Texas, and, of course we lost that game. OU did. But it was Saturday night. I got a real uneasy feeling. We were out and about, and I couldn't really get comfortable for some reason. Sometimes that's your motherly instinct, I think. But the kids had FaceTimed me Saturday. Jeffrey was making cookies like he always does, usually burning the first batch. I have to always add that because it's every time. Burn the first batch. But those are good for dipping. So that was his way of
they
justifying.
They get the pan ready too for the next one.
Season the pan up, get it oily. But the kids had called. They were doing good. Jeffrey was home. Journey was home. Jameer was home. Jacoby was with my sister because he's younger.
Sure.
And of course, I'm thinking they're all good. They're old enough to make their own food, and all this stuff. And they have cars. They can drive. And anywho, I get the kids try to call several times Sunday that morning. Of course, I don't get the full details till later. Of course, I was asleep. It's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning. And I finally spoke to someone about 6 a.m. My mother, she didn't tell me what happened. It was, but I knew. I knew when I got the call.
I remember, and this brought up something with Jameer. I remember when my sister passed. On August 30th, 1983, first day of high school, senior year, best day of school I had in my life. And on that night, I put my head to my pillow, and I heard a knock on the front door, and I said, I said, God, don't let it be Colleen. I believe in premonition and how it is. And it turned out that that's exactly what it was. Was what I believe is the Spirit saying, hey. And it's not like a full answer. It's not like any conclusion. It's just like, hey. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of what was going on?
Oh my gosh. Well, now looking back at it, or even, right after the fact, I was like, I know exactly now what was happening in that moment. Of course, I didn't. It felt weird. Couldn't understand it. But I was in Texas, and my mother came to get me. She was driving. She was going fast, and she picked me up, and then I got the full details of what happened, and that was even more heartbreaking.
Yes. And so let's talk a little bit about Journey first of all. The next in line. She actually found her brother. She and Jameer.
Yes.
How's Journey? How's Journey?
Journey's tough.
They're all tough.
Yeah, them girls, and she'll tell you, she's like, you babied the boys and you were rough on me. Well, she's tougher than a boot, is what they say.
Wow.
She's in college now. She goes to Rose State. She's going to do a sonography. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, sure.
Program. Ultrasound is what I
Gotcha.
call it.
Oh, cool.
You know, seemingly doing well, but, you know, I'm a mom, I know. I can
Yeah.
tell that there's hard days.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, so let's go to Jameer. How's Jameer?
you know, Jameer as well, he has hard days. I think that football helped him, you know, focus some energy and some emotion, you know, so he could put that somewhere else. I know that Jameer probably took it the hardest. That was his brother. They were really close. He would come to his football games, and Jameer he won't tell you this, and we've talked about it, and he still didn't actually tell me, but I'm pretty sure this is why he didn't want to be a quarterback. He was going through some things emotionally, and I don't think he wanted that responsibility on top of his shoulders as well. So he wanted to just get rid of that, you know, responsibility for himself. He didn't want to take that role on at all, and I guess I don't blame him, but you know, he's doing a good job.
Well, and what a great thing for the younger brother, Jacoby, to look up to that. I mean, Jameer decided, no, and I think when we talked to him, we said, he said, and then we said, if not you, then who?
Yeah.
And he felt that. And that's a great leadership quality, especially for a little brother. Tell us about Jacoby now. How's Jacoby doing?
Jacoby was probably the most resilient after Jeffrey passed away. He channeled that Jeffrey energy and was like positive, and you know, Mom, Jeffrey wouldn't want us, you know, sad. He wouldn't want us to do this or that. He was the one who went, I think we had the funeral Friday, and Jacoby was back at school, I want to say Monday.
Wow.
And
I noticed when I started, what does my wife call it when you go to somebody else's page and you're looking at it?
that's called creeping. No.
Creeping. That's right. That's what she says. Creeper. Something like that. And so I did. I went to your page, and one of the very first things I saw was, oh, look what Jacoby got at church. It was a "What Would Jesus Do" bracelet.
Listen, those little God winks.
And that is, you had a picture of Jeffrey, and he had the.
Yeah, we get those a lot. I didn't know they were called God winks. Someone messaged me and told me, because you know, you're like, oh, there's a sign, but now we got a name for it. They're called God winks, and they happen a lot.
I love that. Okay, how's Mama doing?
Well, you know, I see a therapist.
Yes.
I got some close friends, and they understand, you know, that this is not something we can go out to dinner and cheer me up with a good dinner. And lots of times I just like to be at home with my kids. That's really where I want to be.
Yeah.
It's hard, and
It's okay. I remember coming home from my sister's funeral. We had to drive it 12 hours, my brother and I guess I was 16 because I could drive. My brother was 18, so he was driving. And, you know, I looked up at the sky. Actually, I was bawling like a baby. You know, I guess I was 18, he was 20 is how it was, 17, 20. And I was like, you can't be crying. You know, you're supposed to be strong, you know, as an athlete, you know, all of these things. And I was just like, God, I can't do this. I had my feet up on the dash and my head right by my knees. And I looked up, and there was my sister in a cloud.
oh yeah,
Like,
you're like,
so much so. And I had just said, Colleen, I need a sign. I need a sign that you are okay. God, I need help. I look away because it's just too weird. And I look back up, and it was my sister. Colleen Mary Shaughnessy was right there looking at me. And I went, no way, looked away, and then I looked up again, and it was the face that I recognized as Jesus. It was the wildest thing when you talk about God winks, that was like a God nod. Like,
Yeah.
yo, dude.
Yeah. Here
know,
you go.
Like, buddy, hey, you know. And it changed my life. Meaning, you know, I didn't become a great Jesus follower or,
Yeah.
you know, something immediately. It was actually even beyond that. It was more like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. You don't understand it. You don't have to understand that, because my sister was just in a cloud. My sister was in a cloud, and I'll go to my grave knowing that, not asking that, not question. I don't care what anybody else says. That's what was. And then I saw the face of Jesus, and I grew up Catholic. I saw it enough that I knew what I was looking at. Whatever that means for anybody other than me, honestly, in that moment, didn't matter.
It's not for them, yeah.
It's about what God is showing us. And so you talk about going to dinner, you talk about, you know, it's just so much deeper than that. Can you expand on that in the sense of what the actual, there are so many things that are going through your head.
Oh, yeah. You know, you got the guilt, you got the shame, you got the sadness, I've prayed and prayed and prayed not to be angry. So I'm really not angry. Not even at first, I wasn't angry, you know, but I think mostly it's the guilt of not being home. You're responsible for this human being. It's your child. They live at home with you, and then you've essentially put your other children in a situation that will alter their lives forever. I mean, you don't know if they act like they're okay, and they tell me they're okay, and they proceed like they're okay. They're not gonna, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna really, really know.
Without the witness.
Yeah.
Over a period of time.
What I see is they do try, like Jameer says, he's trying, and they try. Every day you get up and you try. You didn't do a great job yesterday, get up, try again. You made some mistakes, get up, do better.
Yeah.
And that's really all I can tell them to do. You know, don't sit here and not try.
Yeah. So now I'm going to turn to you and I'm going to say, so this was a death that was, of course, totally unexpected. And Jeffrey Baptiste passed away because of a fentanyl drug. And Jeffrey was not an addict. Jeffrey was not slumming on the streets. Jeffrey was not a bad kid that any of us would define as a bad kid. In fact, you tell stories of how wonderful Jeffrey was to other people, that they were impacted enough to contact you and tell you about his job. And he was somebody who liked plants, just like Jameer.
Jameer, yeah.
And so tell us the story about, he worked at Don's, I think.
Yes.
And tell us that story.
So my aunt, she's worked down there for many years, Vicky. And then my mother, and then my cousin. So it's kind of like all the families down there, and they pulled Jeffrey in. They needed some strong arms, you know, and so they pulled him in there, and he just loved it. He loved everything about it. He loved, I think he loved being around all the beautiful flowers. I mean, who wouldn't want to be down there every day, right? I go down, I don't even buy anything, and I go down there. So just to look, yeah.
Don's is a classic Shawnee joint, if you haven't been there. Don Britton.
He's a good guy. We love him. But they just,
So he would carry things out to the car for people, and
yes. There were several women who messaged me after Jeffrey passed away, and just to let me know that what a good human he was, and how I did a good job with him. You know, one lady's story particularly stuck out because she said that he didn't know her, but she didn't really know him, but she would have picked him out of a crowd anywhere because of his striking beauty.
Yes.
So that tickled me, and I was like, yes, everything about Jeffrey was beautiful, and I don't...
Even in his pictures, there's a light.
Yes.
about him.
And I joke with the other kids sometimes. I'm like, well, Jeffrey took all the looks. I don't know what to tell y'all. But of
Well,
course,
you've already confessed that Jacoby looks just
yeah,
like him.
I was about to say, of course, I'm a little joking, right? They're all beautiful. Jeffrey had that perfect curly hair, those beautiful cheekbones and eyelashes and eyebrows, and he was just perfect.
He was a stunner.
Yeah.
And the old ladies liked him.
Oh yeah, and they tried to tip him, and this one lady said he just wouldn't take my money. He would not take my money, and I thought that was so sweet.
Well, and that's not the only thing that Jeffrey did. Jeffrey didn't just work at Don's and call it good. He had a second job. Or actually, Don's was actually a second job, I think.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
So Jeffrey initially worked at Hobby Lobby, Don's, and then Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So, of course, that Amazon job was rough. I don't know how anybody could do that. I'm sure you've heard stories.
Yes, I have. And
Okay.
I've watched them.
Yeah.
And I've talked with them at their doors
Yeah.
and stuff.
Well, he worked in the
run.
warehouse.
Oh, okay.
So even,
In Oklahoma City?
yes, sir.
Wow,
Even
I didn't know
probably
that.
worse. I'm not going to put them on blast, but it
I
was.
got you.
Yeah, it was rough.
And
He'd come home and tell stories
And
about
he
that
would
place.
hang in there.
Oh yeah.
22 years old,
Yeah.
beautiful child, beautiful life, stolen.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Stolen. There's no other way to say it. And so, Melissa, what I noticed then was that you may not have got angry, but you were a little pissed off. And you've started something new, and that is, hey, people need to know something. Tell us what people need to know about this experience and what's been gifted to you now, but also a burden, to make sure that people understand.
Well, the first thing was obviously what happened. You know, what could my son have done that caused this? Like, how did this happen? Jeffrey, like lots of kids, you know, messaged, or his friend, I don't know the full details of how it happened because they're, you know, still investigating that. Essentially got what he thought was a Percocet. Again, I blame myself because he had back pain that weekend, and I had took my CBD cream with me, and he lathered himself up with CBD cream all the time. But his back was hurting, I do remember that, and I'm not sure if that was his reasoning for reaching out or seeking out the one single Percocet. And it wasn't a Percocet. It was, in fact, pure fentanyl.
Oh my goodness.
Enough to kill 3 people. And that to me, that did piss me off. I wasn't mad at who he got it from. I realized they were probably a victim in some of this evil scheme as well. But then I started looking at other things like, okay, yeah, these kids are going to do things. I understand that. I have 4 kids. I've been a child myself.
Yep. Me too.
Yes.
Got 6.
We do
and
things.
I was one of 6, and
We do things.
We do things.
We do things, and
we learn.
We learn. But Jeffrey wasn't able to do that, and that's what breaks my heart. And I have to be really cautious talking because when Jeffrey died, there were people saying, "Well, he died of a drug overdose. What's the problem?" And that might make me a little angry. Because to me, it wasn't an overdose. It was a poisoning. It was essentially a murder. Jeffrey was deceived. He did not know what he was taking, because I fully believe if he knew there was fentanyl in the medication that he was taking, or the pill, counterfeit pill, he wouldn't have done that, because he wouldn't have done that to us. There's no way. So I'm finding there's little details in, so we can't always watch our children. We can't always be with them to make sure they're making the right choices. So when the kids called the police, or 911, I'm sorry, it was the sheriff's office, so a deputy came out. They didn't administer Narcan. I'm learning afterwards that Narcan is a life-saving drug that can be administered to reverse opioid overdoses. strictly made for that. If you shot it in your nose right now, it wouldn't bother you, wouldn't bother me, wouldn't bother anybody. It's strictly for overdoses. It helps, reverse the effects, and because the first thing you do is stop breathing. So it helps your brain to remember to breathe. They didn't administer that. It took 30 minutes for the ambulance to get there. I have drove from the furthest ambulance. I think there's one down here. It's really close to my house, but I drove from the furthest one, and it took me 7 minutes and 44 seconds. So there's things that just, the urgency, I don't feel like to help all around is there. I think they think, okay, well, this kid is a drug addict. He took a pill, or whatever the case may be. Maybe they snorted a line, maybe they smoked some weed, and then they died. Well, that's just tough. And from what I'm gathering, and I have looked into several things, they're just not, the empathy to help and make it an urgent matter it's not there. And I don't know how to do it by myself. I'm only one person. And I've talked about these things because I want to help. I don't think if it's preventable, then it should absolutely be fixed. Things like this should be fixed. And it's just heartbreaking that they don't rush to these kids' sides because they think that they're just drug addicts. And that was one of the things is I stress Jeffrey was not a drug addict. He wasn't, because I understand that people, not that it's right, but you see people, they're continually struggling with drugs and back and forth, and then you probably automatically assume one day this is going to be the call you get, right? And that was never the case for us, and I think that's what's so shocking. If I had gotten that warning or sign,
Sure.
then this might be different.
Yeah, it's a really tough situation on all sides because, for example, the deputy who shows up or the ambulance driver, no idea what might have happened on that night. It's such a shock for us, and yet it's so often commonplace for them. They've seen it so often. It's like their household, and so they see things differently. The perception of what's going on, and that's not really it's not really a right or a wrong or even to a fault. It's just perception of the everyday. And wow, I hear what you're saying, Mom.
Well, and this is
saying,
a new thing,
wow,
and I
okay,
understand that.
Wow. Maybe if we have that on it, and the first thing you do is this is what you do.
Automatic.
Some sort of system that says, doesn't matter what happened, this gets squirted, or this.
They should have it loaded up in their trunk.
Yeah.
Because it is here.
Is that what your cry for help is right now through the foundation that you have started? Is it, hey, we need to increase awareness all around for everyone. I mean, a neighbor could have come out.
Yes.
Anything could have
Yes.
happened. Is that Melissa's heart right now?
Yes, because I even went to the school with I set the kids down and I talked to them. I said, what are some things that would have helped you in this case?
Yeah.
I need to know so I can try to help other people. And I truly believe I'm not going to say that's why God let it happen, but he's got to use me for something good. He's got to use us for something good. There's got to be something good come out of this. There's a young man, it makes me smile. His mother contacted a friend of mine, and they essentially got a hold of me, and this young man was struggling with fentanyl. And his mother, found him at home and found pills, and I've rushed over there, and I see him on the porch, and I just immediately started crying because I thought, what am I gonna say to this kid? I'm not his mother. Is he gonna really think, what is this lady doing here? Why did my mom call her? But I just thought, what would I have told Jeffrey? And I laid it all out. That young man went to.
So what would have you told Jeffrey? What would have you told Jeffrey?
I cried when I told him so. That we love him. And he was important. And that what he was about to do would not only affect him, but it would affect everyone around him. I told that young man if he loved his brothers and sisters and his mother and himself, that he would get help. And he did that. He did that. And he went to California and went to a rehab out there. And I check in on him sometimes. He's never met my son, didn't even know him. Of course, I showed him pictures because, I think it's important that you don't see a typical, drug addict individual. And I'm not, I want to be careful when I say that because I don't want people to think I'm insensitive to other people because I am. It's a problem and I understand that. But these kids are walking around, looking normal, and then they drop dead the next day. And it's that quick. And I think when you show other kids that look like them, it's more relatable. And he visits.
Yeah, and right now I want to encourage you, go to Melissa's Facebook page and or look at these photos that we have. Jeffrey was a beautiful soul. Jeffrey, you never would have thought from just looking at him. And he's got a mother who loves him. And I'm sure that Jeffrey heard he was loved and he was important. Because you can see that in his eyes. You can see that in the testimony of the people who contacted you about your son. And so I think that is so important for all of us as parents, grandparents to hear, is that we don't know what we don't know. And Jeffrey, Melissa's son, was not thinking, oh, I'm a drug addict.
Yeah.
Or I'm doing drugs. He was, from every evidence of daily life, he was more like, I've got a backache, and this prescribed drug, which I wasn't prescribed, but is supposed to help me with my backache. And possibly it had helped before. Mm-hmm. But this one time, he gets handed a pill of fentanyl. And perhaps to nobody's understanding in that transaction.
Yes.
And the effect was death. And that's a hard fact for all of us to realize. Mm-hmm. How can people help, Melissa? What, as a mother now going through that, what's the advice that you would give to the parents or to the grandparents? What is it?
Well, don't ever think that it can't happen to your child or even, grandchild, aunt, uncle, grandma. The more I'm learning and the more I'm researching, these types of things are happening all the time, and it's awful because these people are being completely deceived, thinking they're taking one thing. I read a story about a doctor who was out of town and didn't have his medication, needed, some, and took somebody else's. Well, it happened to kill him because it was fentanyl. Somebody was telling me about a young girl who, like an infant, who at a daycare maybe? I don't want to quote
Sure.
because I think that, but I think she passed away because there was fentanyl residue somewhere. Residue. It takes very, very, very little of this stuff to be deadly.
And this is stuff now that's on the streets.
Yes.
In Shawnee, Oklahoma. I mean, this happens everywhere. Small town, large town. You know, the tragedy with my sister happened in a big urban area, and so you think, oh yeah, that's what happens in big urban areas. But we're in our hometown and in our community, and we have a problem with drugs.
I went to a DEA meeting last year. They invited me down to Dallas, and you can imagine that the DEA in Dallas is a pretty big squad, right? It's a pretty big organization. He said, I think he said 7 years ago from last year, they'd never heard of fentanyl or had fentanyl cases. They had to go out to California. A bunch of them went out there to do a training, and they all thought, oh, well, why not? Let's go to California. It's beautiful out there. They didn't have any idea what they were about to embark on, like, you know, coming home. And he said that almost every, I think it was 90% of their cases are fentanyl related.
In Dallas?
In Dallas.
And 7 years ago, they didn't even know what it was.
Yes.
It's not a law enforcement issue. It's a community issue. It's a family issue for all of us. That's what we need to understand. Is it, Melissa, those are hard types of questions to ask your children, isn't it? Like, okay, tell me what your day is. Okay, what was that?
Yeah.
It's hard to converse with your kids.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what we've got to do, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, and I'm crazy now. My kids thought I was crazy before. I'm crazier, you know. It's they understand though. They get it. And I ask the questions, you know. I have locations. Share your location with your children and your parents. That's one thing. I just and these kids that are not knowingly handing out these counterfeit pills, they need to know that they can be charged with murder. Anyone, actually, adults, they are charging people with murder. And it's sad because it affects, you know, everyone. A lot of these cases in Shawnee, they're younger adults or older teenagers. I know of 4, and I didn't.
Died.
Yes, sir. And you don't hear about it. I feel like I'm the only one ruffling feathers around here, and I felt like if we just locked arms, we could maybe get some things done. Narcan needs to be put in schools. Every teacher, every room, every building, everyone needs to know how to use it. And I'm saying know how to use it. Yeah, you just squirt it in the nose, but you need to know the symptoms to look for in a person who is potentially passing away from a fentanyl poisoning or opioid poisoning or
Yeah, and so opioids, fentanyl is an opioid, and I mean, I'm ignorant, I'll say it right out, but like heroin is an opioid, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's what I used to think that Narcan was for, I was hearing the horrific story of heroin in our community for years now, and then it turned to fentanyl.
Yeah.
And, so that's what we're talking about for people my age, is that, I mean, these drugs that have the names that scare us, now those are like the lower echelon of the deadliness of what's out there.
Well, and I don't know much either about heroin, but I know you'd probably have to take quite a bit of heroin to pass away from an overdose.
And so how much fentanyl?
I want to say it's 2 grams, 2 milligrams, 2 mgs.
Well, the way that I understood it,
it's like
2 specks.
Two granules of salt. Small, very small amount. At the DEA meeting, they held up a sweet and low packet.
Yeah.
The guy did, and he said, if this was fentanyl, this would be enough fentanyl to kill everyone in here 3 times. That's
wow, in one little packet.
Yes. You put that into perspective and you're like, holy
I
crap.
mean, why would that, and that's manufactured. Why even would that be manufactured unless it was to kill people?
That's what I feel. I, s- I can't wrap my head around why anybody would want to do this to sweet, innocent children or people.
And it's on us. I mean, again, of course, law enforcement has involvement. They have to, but really, that's 100 people, whereas we're 30,000 people, and our 60,000 eyes need to help one another overcome this problem in our community. Locations that Melissa talked about for grandparents, that's on the phone. I just figured out that I could get locations for anybody who shared it with me. It didn't have to go through messages. I just go to Find My People. And so you can get locations for all your grandkids. You can get all your kids. You can share your location with them as well, because that's the right thing to do, to be able to share with them. So talk and have those hard conversations. Share locations throughout your family, and also learn a little bit about the Narcan. Is that what it's called?
Narcan.
Narcan.
I don't know. I'm
Well, in
assuming.
that, I know that, I mean, here we have a great local facility in Gateway that has a lot of people who understand this, and maybe they can come to your Bible study, or they can come to your gathering or your tea party or whatever type of gatherings that you have, and they can actually give you a demonstration of, hey, this is what's going on and this is how you can help. Because I know Gateway offers this, and it's such a dilemma that they offer this free of charge. They offer that particular antidote.
Yes, they do.
So, Melissa, first of all, can't say anything, you know, that like you said, that makes it better for your loss, but for you and your family, I hope that all of us can prove that we're with you throughout this process. And I want to personally thank you for allowing me the privilege to meet your son, Jameer, and how impressive he was, not just to me, but to everybody that I talked to on that team about leadership. His name was the name that would come up. And your entire family, thank you, Melissa, and so heartfelt. Sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today and being able to talk to people about something that's so hard. Is there anything that you might want to say that I haven't asked about, or that just is on your heart to tell the audience in this time?
Well, I think that, you know, we have hard times with raising kids. We want to pull our hair out sometimes. It's rough stuff sometimes. You may think it's the end of the world sometimes. Just love your family and your kids and everyone around you as much as you can.
I agree. Love. That's the only answer, and love's the power above all.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in again. Wonderful Kids Space Park. Get out and enjoy your family and friends. Thank you to Melissa Baptiste. Thank you to her entire family. Thank you to Journey. Thank you to Jameer. Thank you to Jacoby. Thank you to Virgil. Thank you all for tuning in and watching with us in another episode of the Talk to People podcast. What a privilege it is to meet new people like Melissa Baptiste.
Thank you.
Thank you.